Okay, so this episode is a ranting episode because recently I went on the internet. I saw something that it was just so disconcerting to me that I had to like lie down for a second and just contemplate what this generation of people have come to, me myself included. I had to wonder what I've become, like a little. Oh god. Okay, so basically, this is a rant episode. So if you don't like rants, get out of here, or you can just mute it and watch the gameplay. So this is the rant. So recently there have been so a lot of controversies. So they're doing a Ghost in the Shell live action movie. Hollywood is. Ghost in the Shell being a very beloved and long running, really, like over 20 years, I think it's very long running, beloved, whatever, manga anime series. Spawned 2 or 3 movies, I think at least 2. The original one in the mid 90s, and a 2 actual anime TV series, Standalone Complex and the Standalone Complex Second Gig, being very influential in all sorts of things. Being a very, very, very monumental work of cyberpunk, and influencing things like The Matrix, how visual aesthetics of cyberspace look, things like that. So there have been a lot of controversy because the casting of the main character, the Major Kusanagi Makoto, has been chosen by, like, the Scarlett Johansson has been chosen to play her. Nice try, Blitz, you little bitch. So yeah, he's been chosen to play her, and then there's been a lot of controversy because they say Kusanagi Makoto is supposed to be Japanese, Scarlett Johansson is not Japanese, and therefore this is another case of Hollywood whitewashing actors in sort of large movie or television roles. And so sort of barring all these ill intentions or whatever Hollywood might have, there's actually quite a lot of evidence that supports this fact that Kusanagi Makoto is supposed to be Japanese and therefore should be portrayed by Japanese. However, apparently a sort of popular, I wasn't even aware of this until I saw it, apparently a relatively popular counter argument in this internet thing, interwebs, is that, okay, this is a counter argument, I'll state it non-verbatim, but it's basically that, okay, if hey Shen, if that's considered whitewashing, then why don't, for this live adaptation of a Naruto musical theater play production, I'm not sure, in which the entire cast is Japanese, the counter argument states that why don't they just get a Caucasian actor, because Naruto, being blonde and having blue eyes, is obviously Caucasian. Why don't they get a Caucasian actor or whatever, playwright, I don't know what that term is, why don't they get one of those to portray Naruto? Why'd they get a Japanese person? Isn't that hypocritical of the people who say that Kusanagi Makoto being portrayed by Scarlett Johansson is whitewashing? Okay, so that's the argument. And so, first of all, after reading that, I had to lie down, like, just because the lack of. Okay, so I'm gonna break it down for you. All right, in a way that I hope makes sense, because I've been known to not make sense sometimes, but that's that. Okay, so here it is. So first, let's break it down at the very top level. So let's define Ghost in the Shell and Naruto. They are both manga anime originating from Japan. Both are long running, both are very popular enough to be not only appreciated in Japan, the home country, but also to be appreciated internationally. Naruto, as I'm aware, it's got a lot of English dubs. It's very popular in the West. Ghost in the Shell, same thing. There's different time periods, I guess. So, top level, defining their genre is pretty straightforward. I'm gonna suck this game because I'm just gonna be talking. So, top level is pretty straightforward. Ghost in the Shell is a work of science fiction, and Naruto is a work of fantasy. And so how do you differentiate these two? So a very common definition is that science fiction is a work of fiction based in the realm of possibility, while fantasy is a work of fiction based in the realm of impossibility. So what does that mean? That means that basically science fiction, let's use examples to illustrate this. Something as straightforward as, say, like I could say The Matrix, but something as straightforward as, say, like Star Trek or something. You know, also a very popular series. So Star Trek, right? It's got spaceships, which are, you know, we got spaceships right now. It's very believable. Faster than light travel, sure, maybe not that believable, but you know, with the rules of science that govern our world, with the laws of whatever, you know, with the things that we believe in, it's possible, with some tweaks, I guess, right? The things that they do in Star Trek, like that thing that can create anything that you want. Okay, sure. That's not possible right now, but maybe in the future, who knows? Maybe some new sort of technology might be created that could allow for that, right? So it's based in the realm of possibility, because, and usually that's why it's in the future, because it doesn't exist yet, but in the future it could. It's possible. It's believable that in our existing world, our realm, with all our things that we believe in, that we hold to be true, these things could be possible in the future. However, fantasy is based in the realm of impossibility, meaning that, for example, say like The Hobbit or something, the Middle Earth, Lord of the Rings. You know, hobbits don't exist, and as far as I'm concerned, they never did. There's no such thing as a place in the middle of Earth, and there are no such things as wizards and mages and magics and white wizards and gray wizards and wizards of the rainbow, right? There's no such thing, and there probably never will be, because it's just not possible. Like, magic doesn't exist in our world, and it probably never will be. It probably never will until, you know, some miraculous discovery occurs. In that case, then I'll change from fantasy to science fiction. But fantasy assumes the fact that these things are impossible, and even in the future, they will prove to be impossible, because no technology could ever attain that whatever they're trying to achieve there. Fuck. So that's the thing. So and I guess in that sense, for some reason, fantasy a lot of the time is portrayed in the past, because they're not limited by the, you know, sort of bounds of science fiction, and that, oh, science fiction, you know, you gotta, since these things aren't actually like available today, but they're possible, therefore we'll put it in the future so that it could be created in the future, and therefore it will seem realistic and possible to the reader. Whereas, you know, they're not bound by that in fantasy, so, you know, a lot of the times you can see stuff in the past. You know, it's like Wizards and Mages, Lord Arthur, Arthur Pendragon, I mean, you know, stuff like that. So basically that's the main differentiation I want to put in between Ghost in the Shell and Naruto. That Ghost in the Shell is a work of science fiction, and Naruto is a work of fiddlesticks. It's a work of fantasy. That's the. What are you doing, Blitz? What are you doing? So that's the main differentiation: science fiction versus fantasy, possibility versus impossibility. Now let's look at Ghost in the Shell in a bit more detail. So Ghost in the Shell. So an attempt to sort of prove or disprove, sort of more like, you know, my credibility or my familiarity or lack thereof of the series. Let's just say first off that I've seen the Ghost of the Shell, the original movie in the mid-90s. I've seen the stop it, Zara, Davy Jones. So I've seen the original movie. I've seen Standalone Complex, the first season. I've seen part of the second season, second gig. I have not seen the second movie. I've not seen Ghost in the Shell Arise. So what I'm trying to say there is that basically there could be things in those movies that completely disprove what I'm about to say, but I wouldn't know because I haven't watched them. So at least grant me that. So this is my argument. So it's a work of science fiction, and there's a lot of conclusive proof within those works of Ghost in the Shell that, oh, it's, yeah, dodging. So there's a lot of proof in that in Ghost of the Shell that it takes place in planet Earth. a lot of Section 9's shenanigans, it's all sort of conclusively proven that it takes place in Japan. As far as I'm aware, they reference a lot of districts that are in Tokyo. They reference a lot of things, and sort of like even places outside of Japan. There are references to the Americas, of wars. I think there was that one episode in the first season where this guy did ghost dubbing, and they like specifically said he was like from Mexico or something, some foreign country, right? Oh, okay. So yeah, so it's very conclusively proven that it takes place in a future version of planet Earth, and so therefore you could say that most of Section 9, or all of Section 9 really, are Japanese. The Major, Kusanagi Makoto, Bato, Arawaki, Ishikawa. It's all, it can be very conclusively saying that they're all Japanese. First of all, their names, right? They're very Japanese names. Second of all, the fact that it's just everything takes place in Japan, and there's nothing that really states otherwise that, oh, hey, this person's not from Japan. Sure, you could say that the Major's past is really hazy. Her body isn't actually biological, and it's just her brain, and she switches bodies and stuff. But they haven't said like she's not Japanese. So seeing that the whole series is set in Japan, everything happens in Japan, Kusanagi Makoto always stays in Japan for the most part, I think it can be pretty conclusively said that this thing takes place in Japan. And therefore, the setting of Ghost in the Shell is a future version of planet Earth. So looking at Naruto, that is very clearly a work of fantasy. There's no such thing as the hidden village of the leaf. Like, it's very clear that it has been influenced, and maybe even represents the author's like original sort of view of how he saw Japan in the times of ninjas and stuff. But chakra doesn't exist, ninjutsu doesn't exist, the sage of the six paths doesn't exist, pain doesn't exist. All these things they don't exist, and not only do they not exist, they're based in the realm of impossibility, like I said. So therefore they're a work of fantasy. And so that's brings me sort of to the more main point. If you're trying to counter argue that you shouldn't be whitewashing, or you're trying to say that it's hypocritical to be saying, oh, Kusanagi Makoto is whitewashing if she's being played by Scarlett Johansson, and if you say that, then it's hypocritical if you don't think that Naruto should be played by a Caucasian actor in this theater adaptation. The counter argument I have for that is, if you're going to say that, why don't you just find a pink-haired, green-eyed girl to play Sakura, right? That's just the thing. Like that sounds like a really ridiculous counter argument, right? Like, obviously these people, no one is naturally born with pink hair and green eyes, and so you could say, well, that's an invalid counter argument, because there are very clearly people born with blonde hair and blue eyes. So why don't they do the things that they could do and portray the people that they could portray naturally? See, this is the thing. I haven't seen any interviews with the author of Naruto, but I'm pretty sure that he didn't create Naruto with the idea in mind that, hey, I want this person to be a Caucasian. I'm gonna portray Naruto because I want him to look and behave like a Caucasian. He portrayed him with having blue hair and blonde eyes because that's how anime works. You want to make the main character as distinguishable and as remarkable as possible so that the audience will not forget him in a crowded scene or whatever. They'll remember that, hey, this guy is the main character. They don't want the audience to forget that. They want to make him really distinguishable, likable even, right? So therefore you give him really sharp colors, blonde hair, blue eyes. Look at all there's a big contrast, right, in the sort of three pseudo main characters of Naruto. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Then you got Sakura, pink hair, green eyes. Then you got like Sasuke, who's like completely contrasted, black hair, black eyes. And then when he uses Sharingan, he gets red eyes, right? It's not because the author wants to portray them as, hey, this guy, I want them to look Caucasian. It's because I want them to be distinguishable. Same thing. Look at Ghost in the Shell. Kusanagi Makoto has purple hair. I'm pretty sure you can't find a purple-haired Japanese person anywhere you look. This is sort of countering my own statement, but this is a point I want to prove. You can't find a purple person. But if you look in the anime, even the people in Section 9, the sort of main characters of the story, right? How many of them have weird colored hair, right? Araraki has white hair, okay. He's old. Bato has white hair, okay. Maybe he got traumatized, or he just has white hair because of his cybernetic body. Okay, who else? Like, Ishikawa has brown hair. The I forget his name, right? Like Paz and Baito, or whatever their names are. Like the bald guys are bald. The sniper guy has close cropped black hair. Like, they all have very normal looking and sort of realistic, you might even say, hair, with the exception of arguably the main character, Kusanagi Makoto, who has purple hair, which I believe is for the same reason. You want the main character to be distinguishable. You want the audience to say that is a main character because they've got crazy colored hair compared to the cast. And so I don't think it's because, hey, Naruto, blonde hair because he wants to be Caucasian. So I don't think that's a valid argument. So these people on the internet have even gone so far as to say, oh, you know, like, it's not even that he has like blonde. If you look at the genealogy of the person, oh, his father, the fourth Hokage, hey, he had blonde hair and blue eyes too. If you look at his mother, hey, she had red hair, sorry, Kushida or whatever. So therefore, I guess you could say pretty conclusively that, hey, genealogically, this person is Caucasian because her parents, you know, whatever. It can only be said that biologically this would make sense, that this blue eyes, blonde hair would pass down. Okay, so in response to that, I don't know if you're aware of anime, but I've seen in many cases of anime where someone has like purple hair and like his wife has like blue hair or something, and then their kid has like yellow hair. It makes no sense. You can't really sort of trace genealogy. You can't apply these rules to anime. Simply, like, you can't apply, like, why does Makoto have purple hair? Her parents have purple hair. I don't know if it works like that. Sure, you could say, okay, she has a cybernetic body and she chose to have purple hair for her body. Okay, that works. And so, you know, or you could say, like, okay, if you're gonna say that, then why can't you say, like, why you're disproving the fact that Makoto should be Japanese? Because you're just stating that these are all works of fiction and therefore she should be Japanese. But the point is that these two works are science fiction and fantasy. Science fiction is grounded in possibility, grounded in the reality that we live in. Fantasy is not grounded in that at all. Therefore, races, genders, whatever, may not apply as readily or as accurately as they do in our world. Whereas in science fiction, and more precisely in Ghost in the Shell, they do. It is portrayed in Japan. It is portrayed in planet Earth. Therefore, Kusanagi Makoto, you could pretty conclusively say, is Japanese. However, Naruto is not set in Japan. It's set in a place very influenced and very reminiscent of Japan, with its cultures, places, people. But it is not Japan. Japan does not have a hidden village of the leaf, as far as I'm concerned. And it does not practice ninjutsu in the forests and mountains. So therefore, you could not say with absolute certainty that, hey, this person is meant to be a Caucasian, blonde hair, blue eyes. Therefore, you should portray this person in the theatrical production as a Caucasian, not a Japanese. So that's sort of my argument against that. Sort of in a single sentence, the counter argument would be, if you want to say that, then you have to find a pink-haired, green-eyed girl to portray Sakura. Otherwise, that statement of Naruto being blonde is irrelevant. You can't just portray race to a single character of an anime and then not portray it for the rest. That's a bit irrational, honestly. And sort of on a further point, right? This is the Naruto theatrical production is a very local play. You know, it's a play, right? So, obviously, the people have to be performing this live in Japanese. it's also relatively small scale. As far as I'm concerned, they're not doing any sort of, excuse me, Shen. They're not doing any sort of international productions. It's very local in Japan. So if you really wanted to find a Caucasian blonde hair, blue eye to portray Naruto, it'd be pretty hard, because not only would they have to fit that appearance for the bill, they would also have to speak Japanese, they would also have to be an actor, they would also have to be willing to participate in this play. So it's not very feasible resource-wise to be able to find an actor to fit that role. Whereas Ghost in the Shell, being a Hollywood adaptation, you've got pretty much anyone internationally lining up to seize that opportunity. And it's international English speaking movie, and a lot of people speak English. There are a lot of Asian actors who speak English, so therefore it's feasible at least to audition for an Asian actor. If not, you at least give them the chance, give them the opportunity, right? That's honestly like a bare minimum. That's what I think. Like, there was that issue with The Martian, right, where one of the person's names was like something Park, and then people were saying, and in the movie it was portrayed by a Caucasian woman, and they say, hey, this is Park is so obviously a Korean name. Like, why are you using a Caucasian actor to portray this? And then the author said, well, it's a book. I never had any visual representations. Like, I'm not supposed to, I don't know. It could be, we have a very diverse people today. It could be anyone, really. It could be mixed blood. So that's viable, I guess, but a bit iffy, if anything. But this is the issue with this one, in that Ghost in the Shell is on such a larger scale than this Naruto production, that there's really, stop it, Soraka, that you shouldn't hold it to the same standards, in that it's like you have all the resources. Hollywood has all the resources in the world, so they don't have an excuse to be like, hey, I'm not gonna cast an Asian actress, because there aren't any. There are so many. You should at least give them an audition chance. And so, you could argue that thing, casting Scarlett Johansson, is a case of whitewashing, sure. Whereas for the Naruto production, you can't really say that they cast a Japanese person because they want to disregard Caucasians. Because first of all, for the reasons I listed before, I don't believe that the author intended to portray Naruto as a Caucasian person, despite his appearance resembling a Caucasian person. And also because resource-wise, you're probably not gonna find one that fits that bill, right? So that's my 2 cents on that. But sort of to play devil's advocate with myself, I will say that that honestly, like, all choices considered, I actually think Scarlett Johansson's not that bad of a choice for Kusanagi Makoto. Like, based on her portrayals of, very famously of Black Widow, that's pretty much like what I personally imagine Makoto to be. Like, a sort of very cool, calm, sometimes snarky individual, and Scarlett Johansson's a deep voice, right? I sort of imagine that with the ambiguity of gender that they portray Makoto as having in the first movie, not so much in the standalone complex, but in the first movie, like, she has such like a manly appearance, despite being a female, and that thing where like she never covers herself up and Bato always throws his clothes on her. It's a very interesting like plot point in the first movie, which if you haven't watched the movie, you should check it out. It's a bit dated, and it's sort of inflated, perception wise. It's been sort of raised to mythically standards. Like, it's good, but it's not like whoa shit in my perspective, but it's still good, definitely worth a watch. But yeah, so like, to play devil's advocate, I don't think Scarlett Johansson's that bad of a choice. Like, they could have chose worse people, honestly. And you could argue that the fact isn't that they couldn't have chose worse people, it's that they should have chose an Asian actor, even if she would have been worse, because she's Asian and fits the role better. Like, it's honestly just a matter of perspective, if you want to say that. And sort of another point I think was pretty interesting is that I saw this interview of this guy went to Japan and talked about this same issue, and it was interesting because the Japanese people, they saw this and they said, hey, isn't this good though, because Ghost in the Shell is an anime adaptation, and so therefore wouldn't it be better to have a Caucasian play this role? So that struck me as pretty interesting because in the West, right, whenever you want to have something foreign, exotic, almost alien, right, you want to have someone from the from the Orient, from the East. Whereas apparently in the East, if you want to have someone exotic, foreign, almost mystical, you want to have them portrayed by someone from the West, like a Caucasian. So in the end, I guess it's just a matter of perspective. And I still fucking won this game. Woo! So take it what you will. Goodbye.